All right, welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, August 13th meeting of the Onalaska Common Council. The time is 7:11. We're getting started a little late because we're adjusting to having the meeting in a different room that we're not familiar with. And now we will have the roll call. I'm wondering if Sabrina is ready to call the roll for me.
I am, Sean McAllister,
Present.
Dan Stevens,
Present.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Mike Milky,
Here.
Alder Jurassic,
Present.
Alder.
I am Kim Smith, the mayor, and I am also here. Thank you. You're all present. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees. This is a harassment-free forum. We should be able to hold conversation and debate in an atmosphere free of harassment. If you are not following these rules, you may be cut off from further comment or debate. Item 4 is public input. Anyone who'd like to address the Common Council, now is the time to do so. Please begin by stating your name and your address and limit your items to 3 minutes. Citizen Stephen Knott.
Probably good to stay there.
I live at 2205 Quarry Lane. And just wanted to address the council to make sure everybody is aware of the fact that we have a hero that is coming home. His funeral will be on Monday, August 26th, 10:30 a.m. at St. Patrick Parish, followed immediately after by a procession and burial out at the Catholic Cemetery on Losee Boulevard. Sergeant Jack Holfeld, he grew up in 4 areas actually. His family moved around quite a bit when he was younger. He was born in Hamburg Township, just outside of Stoddard. At age 13, he moved up to Centerville, just north of Holden. And then as a very young adult, he lived in both La Crosse and in Trempealeau, which is what is listed on his enlistment documents. He enlisted in 1938 as a volunteer, was stationed in the Philippines when it was attacked on December 8th, 1941, the day after Pearl Harbor. And he was actually with the 24th Support Group, which is the Army Air Corps. Those were 4 fighter squadrons. He was with the headquarters squadron. The 24th was just overwhelmed by sheer numbers, and within about 10 days or so approximately, they became combat ineffective, and the Army created what was called the 2nd Infantry Regiment Provisional, of which all the other folks from the 24th group, they suddenly became infantrymen, and they moved down onto the Bataan Peninsula under the 71st Infantry Division to help defend the last holdout on the main island. Obviously, there was a surrender. Sergeant Holfeld actually survived the Bataan Death March and was put into Cabanatuan Japanese prison war camp. And if anyone knows their history, Cabanatuan is notoriously infamous for its brutality. And he did pass away there. He died of starvation, basically. Lack of niacin is eventually what it was. On December 26, 1942, and was put into a common grave with 5 other individuals who died in that same period. And I'll shorten the story. Bottom line is he became listed as missing in action. His mother was writing letters as early as 1943 to the War Department to try to locate him and bring him home. When she passed, Sharon Grau, who was an Onalaska resident and the niece of Jack Holfeld, took up that torch to try to identify him and bring him home. And in 2015, after they had already originally ruled that he would never be identified because of the common grave and there were intermingled remains, they reopened his case. And of course, now we've got DNA. And as May of this year, the end of May, the family was notified that they have positive identification of Jack and he is coming home. He will have full military honors because he is a combat war death. And it is open to the public. The family wants to share his story with the community. Everybody is invited. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Would anyone else like to address the Common Council this evening? Please sit down, state your name and your address, and give your comments to the welcome.
Ben Fletcher, in A314 Dugby Drive, Holman, Wisconsin. I'm the manager of Holman Paints in Alaska. I didn't get a council thing, but this is kind of my routine every month now, assuming I was on the document. But I am here and I'll stay after for any questions, or anything about our mural matter and our signage issues that we have going on with the city right now.
Thank you for coming. Would anyone else like to address the common council this evening? Anyone else? Last call, public input. Public input is now closed. Item 5, report from the mayor. Please note in your packet is a draft proclamation for the celebration of the Onalaska Food Basket. They're celebrating their 40-year anniversary, serving food to people in need in our community. They have recently been able to do an expansion and are having a ribbon cutting service on August 29th at 4:30 p.m. If anyone would like to join us, I will be reading that proclamation at that event. Item B,
Brenner,
yes, sir.
I can just add that as many people are aware, the inflation has hit the nation pretty hard, and some families struggle with food security even in our area. So if you are able to come to the ribbon cutting, if you're able and you can bring a few extra canned goods or boxed food, it's a continual struggle to keep food on the shelves, and our food basket does a really good job at meeting that need, but as much help as we can get from the community, it is really appreciated.
Thank you for that, Ken. Okay, item B, presentation, consideration, and possible adoption of the strategic plan. Heather is here and she's now PowerPoint.
And we're pulling that off.
I'll turn it over to you, Heather, whenever you're
Thank you,
ready.
Madam Mayor. While it's opening, I'll just, first of all, want to thank the staff and the administration and the department heads. They put in a lot of time and outside of their jobs that they do every day and really needed to do it. I also really want to thank all of you on the council and the mayor and past council. You came early, you skipped dinner, you did a lot to really help wordsmith, craft, apologize. And when we might be able to flip it to the next, we'll see. One, so thank you, in other words, and we can go to the next slide, Amanda, thank you. So just an addendum to the changes made in that plan since we reviewed it, I wanted to just list those. So we did add an appendix with that last team meeting, and that's appendix B in the new form that you all did receive, I believe, yesterday. And then there were some different spelling and grammatical errors that we did fix for you. Next slide. Basically, this is just that umbrella. So you're doing the comprehensive plan right now. You will be doing budgeting, you will be doing different zoning, land use, all of that. This is kind of that umbrella that helps lead all of those. Where we went and how we did this, we really did look at what do we have right now? And this is where it gets tough because Onalaska does amazing things. And sometimes when we start looking at that current state and what we're doing right now, it starts to feel a little bit critical. It's easy to try to maybe feel a little bit defensive. And it's really, where do we want to go? What do we want to focus on? What do we want to prioritize? And then we looked at, what do we want to be? What does Onalaska want to be known for? So we really then looked at what's our future desired state, and then how do we get there? So next, we have our plan. This is the cover of that plan. This will be available as a PDF and that you can sign later. And this is that basic infographic for here's everything in this plan. So kind of a one pager. We'll look at just briefly at each of these next. So our values for Onalaska that were determined by everyone on the committee were safe, vibrant, and destination. Onalaska is known to be a safe community. It's a vibrant community, and it's a destination where people would like to live, work, enjoy, and visit. Our vision is to be a welcoming community where residents, businesses, and visitors come to flourish. And our mission on the next slide is to create a destination where everyone thrives by sustaining a safe and vibrant community. So all of these really were that guide star for how does everything else go. And when we looked at the current state, when we looked at other data, so surveys and different plans, different things in the community, we have the smallest font you have. We thought the font was before, and now we have tested that. We came up with 14 different themes that were really, and these are in priority order, for really looking at, we want to make sure that this is an amazing community. We have on there development, we have staff on there, we have knowledge, a lot of things that we really want to work on. And throughout the plan, we made sure that it fit everything that we did and all of the actions that will be taken. So the next slide shows those future statements, so those 5 big goals. For all right, what does Onalaska want to work on over the next 5 years? And those are Onalaska is a connected and welcoming community and a safe place for everyone to live, work, and enjoy. And as was said at one of the meetings with all of the council, was this is kind of that umbrella statement that everything else actually goes under it as well. The other ones are Onalaska balances equitable economic growth while sustaining our natural resources. Onalaska city staff works to provide excellent services and facilities. Onalaska provides programs, services, and opportunities for all neighborhoods, groups, and abilities while maintaining fiscal responsibility. And Onalaska collaborates to provide creative solutions for the benefit of the city. And you can see where each of those themes fits under all of those future statements. So next, we really wanted to just kind of give a visual of what this actually looks like. And so we have 5 future statements, so 5 major statements and strategies that we would like to work on. Of those main strategies, there's 15. So really looking at, okay, what do we need to do first? What's next? What happens right before we've actually achieved this? With all of those strategies, there are 45 steps to get there. And with those steps, there are 135 performance measures that the staff, the council, whoever's working on these can say, okay, check, we've got this. And then just so, because that looks a little daunting, we also have 47 folks who are listed as those champions. Those, I'm going to take the lead on this, I'm going to be involved in this. So just looking at that, you're like, okay, well, there's about 1 person for every 3. If we really wanted to do some math on that. So on the next slide, what we see is just a couple of those action-oriented items that go along with each of these. So we're going to really work to improve connections with residents, businesses, and visitors. We're going to increase civilian connections with personnel. And we're going to really leverage that website, which I know has come out and is beautiful. So some of these are already in progress and really looking at, okay, how can we centralize this? How can we make sure people know about it? How can we make sure that it's really, really useful for everyone? The next slide is that second future statement. And this is where we balance economic growth while sustaining natural resources. And we're really looking at the trail systems and the riverfront waterfront. So what is possible? What's possible in the next year or 5? What might we look at in the future? So really looking at what are those plans? The next future statement is to really provide excellent services and facilities. So this is looking really at staff. So some internal goals to really look at retention of current staff, looking at increasing emergency services, training and attracting qualified staff, making sure that benefits attract the best and retain the best, and then providing, maintaining, or creating up-to-date facilities that serve the community and meet the needs of the staff. The next one is to provide programs, services, and opportunities for all neighborhoods, groups, and abilities. And we can see, I don't have this memorized, and you can see this, it's pretty, right?
I think we have a motion to hurry it.
Like, come on, let's get it done.
It goes, but if I click right, it does nothing. So it's a tricky mouse, I'm sorry.
And this is what you do when technology is so much fun, is we just embrace the awkwardness and moving forward.
You know, I always wanted to be Vanna, and I feel like this is the closest I'm
You are
getting.
doing so well
I'm
with
not
this.
doing well.
You were like, knowing when I'm gonna go to the next slide is done.
Yeah.
Shoot, hit the space bar, I thought.
There we go. So this one, where we're really looking at those programs and services, is what can we do to look at partnerships with civic and volunteer groups, to maintain facilities and services, which includes adequate city staffing levels, as well as consistently evaluating programs, services, and opportunities, to be the most inclusive and the cost effective. And then the next one is we're looking at the collaboration for creative solutions. And this is really maintaining and building those partnerships with neighboring municipalities, with different service organizations, with businesses as to, okay, who can do what? What are some of those opportunities that we really may have? And then gathering input from all staff levels. What we saw throughout this plan was department heads have amazing ideas and amazing leadership. And the staff that was also involved has some really awesome ideas. And how do we make sure that is always happening? So we collect that all. And then, so we know that, okay, that sounds like a lot, it is, right? There's a little bit of a timeline, it's, you know, a little bit, some of these things have started already. Some of the trail systems, there's different things going on with the land, with connecting those trails right now, so that's kind of happening as we speak. We move to that connected and welcoming, the website, the communications, all of that is really happening right now. When we go to, you know, the staffing, we're looking at, okay, what do we need to look at? What do we need to evaluate? So some of this will start fourth quarter, some of this will start in 2025. And if you want to see, this is the example of what Rick and the staff and the department heads will have as to, all right, here's the goal, here's the steps, here's the strategies, here's your metrics and what you said would happen. And once it's done, it's kind of a check off. Or if it's a new policy or procedure, it definitely comes, you know, before you all and saying, okay, we figured out, here's maybe a different way or a better way to do this. So they have a whole packet of, here's your list of to-dos, kind of that task list. I believe this is the last slide because that was a little bit more daunting. Are there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Heather? No, I feel like we've had a lot of opportunity to have dialogue, so our lack of questions don't necessarily reflect like a lack of interest, but a good job on your part. So
You
thank
all
you
did an
for,
amazing job.
thank you for all the hours that you put into this, and I really think that you did a good job, you know, capturing all of our collective vision for our community. And also presenting it in a way that's useful and easy to understand, and it's really like a workbook for our staff. So I do appreciate that. Does anyone else have any? Okay, so what action is needed on this item?
We would be asking that the council, consider taking action to approve the strategic plan.
I move to approve the strategic plan.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Mike Milkey to approve the strategic plan. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Heather. You can text your partner now.
I can do that.
Item C is just an update. I wanted to let you all know this is an annual meeting, but the Lake Onalaska Rehabilitation and Protection, it's the last word, it's district, will be having their annual meeting here on August 28th at 6:45 in the council chambers. If anyone would like to attend, you are welcome. And if there's any significant outcomes of that, as it reflects to Lake Onalaska, I'll bring that back in a report next month as well. Okay, recommendations for approval and or possible action from the following committees, commissions, boards, or officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Diane Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to pull item 6E under finance, the approval of assessment services request.
Are there any other items the councilors would like to remove from the consent agenda? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Dan Stevens, it's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion is approved unanimously. Moving on to the non-consent agenda, under 7 is a recap of the items pulled from the consent agenda. The item pulled was item 6E. I think we can go ahead and cover that now, as it is under finance anyway. So we'll do item 6E first, and Sean, I'll turn it over to you for that.
I'll turn that one to.
Usually you could say there was a motion to approve.
Oh, motion to approve, I'm sorry, motion to.
Say what happened at the finance and
The,
put the motion on the floor.
sorry, a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the assessment services request for proposal and award that to Accurate of Reasons.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor by Sean McAllister. It's been seconded by Stephen Knott. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Your Honor. Feels weird.
Yes, I know, I
I
kind
keep going further.
of like it too.
Yeah, so, I have spoken with both our city administrator and our finance director about this. I, for one, I just don't feel comfortable rubber stamping this RFP this evening. I did attend last week's FMP meeting and I since read the minutes. I appreciate the situation administration is in when we only received 2 RFPs and the difference in cost is considerable. I understand the current assessor is being recommended and it appears that there has been discussion regarding putting safeguards in place to improve the city's and the taxpayers' future experiences. I have served on the board of review 7 different times for my tenure on this council. Regardless of who has been our assessor, I've always felt quite honestly that the city and our taxpayers and constituents have always been very well represented. Last year, 2023 was a very different situation. And I was not the only one in the room felt that way. I'm fully aware that when it's reassessment time of our community, it can be volatile at times. If you read anything at a nationwide level, it can get a little testy and, you know, and even when there has been considerable increases in the past, in assessments, it's never like it was last year. I didn't feel Accurate represented themselves as a company well during that day. And much more important, I didn't feel our taxpayers got very good rep. They got really crappy representation that day. I was embarrassed to sit at the dais last year. I was just plain embarrassed. I think if anything, it proved to be what good service we had gotten in the past from previous people. And I think it's really easy to just assume. I don't know embarrassment, but I think of Brad and the relationship that City of Alaska's had with Brad for all these years and that trust that you have. That relationship that you have formed with our staff for all the years. And I've come to really appreciate that. So when I say to you, you know, welcome and thank you for being here, you know, I mean that sincerely, but when there is a break, when there is some issue, it's kind of like, I didn't realize how good we had it. Other people, so I'm still not sure I'm gonna vote this evening, but I certainly not be voting that, but I just did not feel comfortable just going along to get along, because I know how it made me feel last year, and I know there were a lot of angry last year, and they had every right to feel.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
And one thing that came up at our meeting last week was that, yes, we know the service hasn't been great. Sabrina, from my understanding, has talked with them and we've been safeguarded or told that, hey, we're gonna have better representation. We have somebody that is championing that. From my time in the meeting last week, really seemed like it still was a great choice. I can fully understand where Paul's coming from, but just want to make sure people know that we do have steps in place to prevent that from happening again. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just have a question. Is there an alternative proposal? I mean, we need to have an appraiser. So,
There were two.
and the difference would be come at quite a cost, is my understanding.
Let's have Amanda wants to answer the question.
So we did have two proposals. There was about a $300,000 swing between the two proposals for the 5-year period. We did interview both regardless because of our concerns related to some of the things that Diane had mentioned. And one of the questions for accurate was lay out your customer service plan and lay out how you're going to improve and how, I mean, they're well aware. I think as staff, we hope that they have heard the message loud and clear. I mean, I think we made it unequivocally clear to the point that like we are writing in the contract who our customer service manager will be. And also indicated that we can name the person that we wanted to appear for review. And so we do have it in the contract that we can terminate also. And so it's not a contract that we, couldn't walk away from at some point if we didn't see an improvement in their customer service and how they handle water review. Obviously, that would have its own financial repercussions that we would have to talk about at that time, but that is always.
Thank you for that, Amanda. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, the motion on the floor is to approve Accurate Appraisal as the assessment services, per the details described in the packet of the previous meeting. All those in favor, should we do a roll call? Let's do a roll call vote and they'll stay in trouble. Sabrina, are you ready for that? Are you equipped?
I'm ready, ready.
All right.
Alder Diane Wolf,
I was.
Alder Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Alder Stephen No,
Aye.
Alder Sean McAllister.
Aye.
Alder Larry Jurassic,
I,
Alder Michael.
Hi,
Okay, so the motion passes with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention. We'll continue on then with the finance section. Sean, are you ready?
I am ready, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, item number 8 is vouchers. I'll make a motion to approve the voucher total for this time. It's $3,053,662.36.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Sean McAllister. It's been seconded by Dan Stevens to approve the vouchers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The vouchers are approved unanimously.
Item number B is the amendment to Road Park agreement with La Crosse County.
So this came over with no recommendation, so that it would be kind of before you fresh tonight. So as we're going to talk about later in closed session, there is the possibility of a school district park expansion project wherein the school district, should the city make a decision to, under whatever terms we decide, allow them to take up additional space in the park. Before we could even have that discussion, we needed to enter into an agreement with the county. So for those of you that don't know, a little bit about landscape history is that Road Park used to be a county park. And in the early 90s, they gave the park to the city with a fairly lengthy agreement, with a fair amount of terms to it. And so part of those terms are essentially that the park has to remain open to the public, be a public space. And so if we were going to restrict any part of that from public access, we felt we needed the county blessing to do that. So we did put together an agreement. Again, this is really just an agreement to give us the possibility of utilizing park space for something other than what it is currently designated. And so we worked with La Crosse County to come up with this brief amendment to the agreement. They were very supportive. They felt like it was within The intent of the original agreement, which, for many of you may know, the golf and tennis courts are in Roe Park, but are managed and maintained by the school district, and we have agreements for those. Some of which are incorporated into this larger agreement, and so they did not have a problem with it. It did go through county board, and now it's before you tonight. So really, the agreement just says that if the city wants, we could enter into an agreement with the school district. For uses consistent sort of with that idea that it is still a park. So the one thing we did agree that we would not allow. So we would not be giving up park space for.
Okay, do the counselors have any questions, or are we prepared to at least get a motion on the floor to continue discussion? Larry Jurassic.
I have a question. You were saying that the contract requires that it has to be for free public use. What if they turn that into a stadium? Are they gonna be charged for the?
No, so we did list acceptable uses in the amendment, if you look at it, and one of those would be a stadium.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, are there any other questions, or else we could have a Diane Wolf?
So quick question, Amanda, so regarding, the amendment. So this is just saying that we may enter into an agreement, we're not doing anything.
No, we could pass this agreement and do nothing with the school district, like this just gives us the possibility to enter into an agreement.
Does this give us the ability to talk about this closed session then? Is that what this?
That does that as well, yeah,
Okay,
because otherwise we would be having a fictitious conversation because we didn't actually enter into negotiations until we were allowed by the council.
I think I will hold my questions for closed session. Thank you.
So we need a motion to
We do
bring this
need-
to,
We need a motion to approve the amendment to the agreement.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Dan Stevens. It's been seconded by Diane Wolf. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, we have a vote of 5 in favor and 1 abstention. Go ahead, Sean.
Item number C is resolution 25-2024.
Yeah, thank you. So in front of you at your tables is the updated resolution. In your packets was the draft. I do have, Brad, which is here from Baird, who's gonna give a little presentation to you as well, which is also in front of you. It's all up there.
Yeah, welcome, Brad. It's good to have you here.
I handed out a presentation packet just before the meeting started. The reason the resolution is revised, that's before you tonight, is just finalize the grades. Snow anticipation late yesterday, so orals, bond council finalized the resolutions. I want to point out one change in the final resolution as compared to the draft, and that is that the queue size is increased by $5,000. So it's at 4,150,000 instead of 4,145,000. So I'll walk through this packet and answer questions, but so as a reminder, this is really the step in this financing plan that's going to provide additional funding, borrow dollars for the community center project. With funding $4 million. And this is the short-term note, it's a note anticipation note. Plan that was approved by the council back in June was that we would, after the short-term note is issued, we would roll this into a longer-term financing in the spring, probably with your regular traditional CIP borrowing. So in terms of the size, I mentioned it's 4,150,000. This issue is going to close on September 3rd. So that's the date that the funds will be wired city. And it does, we have a final maturity date of September 1st of next year. But we've got flexibility here to repay this debt beginning of April 1st of 2025 or any business day thereafter. So we've got really a 6-month or 5-month window to secure long-term financing. But again, the plan is to wrap this in with your city CIP borrowing. And as a reminder, also, the reason the city council moved or recommended that plan is in June, we were really at a high level mark of interest rates. And we're just now starting to see rates drop a little bit anticipated that interest rates, long-term interest rates will be lower next year in the spring. There's no guarantees, of course, but it's just a trend that we appear to be following. So thought was, let's not lock in long-term today, the high interest rate environment. Let's wait till spring. And this is also going to provide some administrative efficiencies by combining one long-term debt issue with your note issue in the spring. So there's going to be some efficiencies there. I think the really good news here is the interest rate on this note came in lower than what we use for planning purposes. Back in June, I talked to you about a 5.05%, and tonight we're able to lock in at a 4.92. One other, I want to point out, we don't have a bond rating on this issue. Normally, the city's issues are rated, we double it to, and this is not at all a reflection of the credit quality. This was really an economic decision, the cost benefit analysis. We found that the cost of getting a rating for the short-term issue was not recaptured through lower interest rates. So we just let the bond rating side save that fee for the city. I've updated the long-term financing plan. And the highlight I think to take away from this, when I look at the funding bonds, it's labeled as promissory notes, that's a $4 million piece that contemplated to be issued in the spring. The total repayment on there is more than $100,000 less, better than what I had used for planning purposes in June. It's a reflection of movement in the current interest rate environment. The interest rate, that long-term debt, you can see is down to 3.66 back in June. The current rates at that time were 3.86. So we're already seeing sort of this trend, I think, of this movement downward in interest rates. Ideally, we'll be at even lower levels next spring. But before this long-term financing is brought to the market or anything, I'll be back in front of you, updated with a new resolution, and like I said, we'll probably tie this in with your spring financing. So I'd be glad, overall, very successful transaction. So I'd be glad to answer questions if you want to work.
Does anyone have any questions for Brad? Dan Stevens.
Maybe just more, well, I do have a question, but a little commentary. I know like for those that follow the markets, like the VIX is really high and there's a lot to suggest that I would expect the Feds to cut rate, and that's not what we're talking about, but there's kind of a correlation. So I'm really glad that we're not locking the long term on this, because I think the market is kind of better than what I thought it was when we last talked about this in June. But that said, typically when you refinance bonds, there are some administrative costs. How much would those be?
Ballpark, it would be 2% of the borrowing loan, 2 to 2.5% of $4 million would be the issuance cost.
That's kind of a lot.
Where we are capturing efficiencies though is by bringing it at the same time as the city's other financing. I anticipate we'll be able to bring this as one long-term borrowing, so your CIP portion and this refunding portion. So instead of doing two separate financings, we can set this up as one, and that's going to help keep costs lower.
And we are locked into this now, or is this not official yet?
You're locked into the no anticipation note if you adopt the resolution tonight. And then the refunding bond, you're not committed to at this point. The resolution you're adopting though does indicate that the city intends to issue refunding bonds, right? But there'll be a separate resolution to formalize that, but there's an intention here that you're going to reserve appropriate borrowing capacity and take out the notes with long-term bonds.
Are the refinancing costs negotiable?
Yeah, I mean, we're negotiating with Moody's. That's one of the reasons we didn't use Moody's on this short-term note. But the other players involved is going to be Disclosure Council, Bond Council, Bear.
Okay, let's have Sabrina Steger, our finance director, comment.
Thanks, Mayor. This was all discussed in that June meeting where we decided we had several different options that Brad had brought forward. And it was my recommendation at that time and the committee's recommendation that we move forward at this. But I still am very confident that rates are going to be lower and in agreement that we are doing this bond anticipation note and then in the spring locking it in with CIP. So just putting it out there that I'm still fully in agreement. I think we're on the right path. And this was already discussed in multiple formats, and this was the most conservative approach in regards to cost, was to go this route.
One of the discussion points there was it was found or was anticipated to be a lower cost option, even with the addition of issuance costs on the second financing. Overall financing package is expected to be lower cost than if we had locked in to a 20-year issue, tonight.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Alder Stevens, are you good or are you?
Yeah, I 2% of 4 million is kind of a lot of money, and I'm kind of wondering if we were to. There's other applications if we were to hold off and wait for things to get better, but this is better than what we expected 2 months ago, so. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but at some point we need to stop speculating, so.
Okay, so we need a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 25-2024.
In the amount of $4,150,000.
In the amount of $4,140,000.
Okay. Okay, so for the record, the amount is $4,150,000. Sean McAllister has made the motion. Stephen, Diane Wolf has seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, item 9, Judiciary Committee. I'll turn it over to Annette.
Right, item 9A is ordinance 1795-2024 to amend section 10.01.31.e of Title 10 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to alternate side parking restrictions. This did pass out of committee unanimously. Basically, it truncates the time period on both ends. It starts a little later with alternate side parking and ends a little earlier. But we've also added the authority of the Director of Public Works or his designated designee to declare a snow emergency outside of those areas, which would put the alternate side parking back in place. Is there anything Amanda or Jared would like to add?
The only thing I would add is we just fixed like one typo and that's in the blue.
I will move to approve ordinance 1795-2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic to approve ordinance 1795-2024. Is there any discussion? Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may ask, our Public Works Director, our Director of Public Works, Jared Coulter, could you share with me what is the current protocol when? I just start over. So item 5 gets approved tonight as is. In your opinion, as Director of Public Works, you would be calling for emergency alternate site parking due to conditions. What's that scenario look like to you? How do you handle that? By the end? We're all kind of on the same page. We understand.
Yeah, so we would, obviously, just like we do for any snow event, any ice or winter event, we would be watching the weather, gathering forecasts, trying to make a determination, talking to our neighbors on what they're gonna do. And then, once we get to a point where we feel that it is going to meet the criteria or what we need to have the snow emergency declared, we would go through a process of having a press release, putting the website, social media, all variety of things, so, and Amanda will help with that, so it'll be, once we make that decision, that's, just get it out in the press, basically. And to maybe able to add to that.
Yeah, so I think once Jared makes that decision, we'll probably pick it over to me. We'll do a press release, get it out on the news channels. We will update the new website. So if you have looked at the new website, there is a pop-up feature right now. It's saying, hey, we have a new website. We can have that say anything. So we can have, hey, there's a snow emergency. We also have the ability, we're going to really, once we start broadcasting the new website, pushing people to sign up for alerts. You can sign up for alerts. So I will send you all an email to tell you guys, but that's good for that. But we can auto send alerts through the new website. So that would be a great way to use that system. We would also depend on the rate system for the people that are signed up for that. We would send it out that way. We would blast it out on social media. We are hoping to build our own contact list via the website with the alert system, but in the meantime, we would continue to rely on Park and Rec to blast it out via their email list. And so I think, you know, we would hit as many options as we could, but definitely try to cover any forms. Knowing especially that there are some people that don't get on the internet, and so really getting out to the stations and radio would be a top priority.
So Jared, when we used to have a full-time mayor, did you used to coordinate that at all, the mayor, or just inform them now that we have a city administrator? Is that something that, like, you would touch base with, or just inform them, or kind of, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we've never had a snow emergency before, so we've just had out to side parking, but my vision would be obviously. The city leadership team would be involved in the decision, so our city administrator would also be informed and say what's going on. It's gonna be a staff decision where, you know, work together with the team and be looking at various things to make that ultimate decision, so. You know, I think we're gonna need to do it a few times too to get bugs out of it. I mean, we're gonna need to do it to.
Right.
Get it going.
So we do, and I'm perfectly fine with this. My only pickup, and I kind of expressed a little bit last Wednesday, was that A&J was, or that person's designee, and they could be different people. So I guess I'm, as alders, as the elected, we are, you know, we set policy. And I'm always fond of saying that, then it's our job to get the heck out of the way and let administration department heads go ahead and do their job. So, since this is something new and it does affect the city, citywide, which could have rippling domino negative effects. My only concern is, can this council assume that your person's designee will also follow the same protocol as what you just stated?
I have total faith in my staff that we will coordinate it adequately if I'm not available. Right now, we have, you know, we have staff, you know, I'm not in at 3 o'clock in the morning, a lot of times when we plow snow, so. We have staff that are running those operations just like any operation within the city. All of us rely on our subordinate staff to run those operations, so, and I think we have plenty of capable individuals currently that can make those decisions in my absence, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Alder Jurassic?
The only question I have, are you gonna have a maximum time? So if it's not done by 9, 10 o'clock, are you gonna?
What I would envision is probably gonna be 48 hours long. That's most of what I've seen. Once we declare it at a certain time, we'll declare it sometime. Typically, try and hopefully say maybe we press release in the morning. Say it's gonna start at 6 o'clock at night. All depends on the storm. Every storm's different, every weather event's different, wind, ice, snow, a lot of snow, blowing snow, all kinds of things. Once we declare it, we will probably declare it for 48 hours because of the fact that we need to go back the next day and do cleanup. So part of the alternate side parking right now is important while we're plowing snow, but also then to do the cleanup the next day. So it'll probably be 48 hours long. I would envision if we declare it.
No, but I mean, the notice won't come out like 1 o'clock in the morning. It'll come out.
No, I would envision that we would.
Someone needs to do a
motion.
Yeah. Time to walk.
It's stretch time.
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. I would envision,
I've never had that happen before.
I
I just want to.
I would envision that we would do it in the, you know, it would be something where we're gonna try and. Obviously, you're darn if you do and darn if you don't. But make a decision too early and something doesn't happen if you wait too long, and it does happen, you don't give people enough notice, so. There's a fine dance there and you know, they're gonna start snowing at 1 AM or 6 PM at night, so. It's never gonna be perfect, it's not gonna be perfect science, we'll try and give the best we can for notice and, you know.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, any other discussion? We have a motion on the floor to approve this. Discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously, so good luck, Jared. Back to you, Stephen.
Item 9B, ordinance 1796-2024. Amend section 10.01.51.d.3 of Title 10 of Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to alternate side parking fines. This is specifically referencing inside the changes, some updates to the forfeiture schedule.
Yeah, so this is sort of just a follow-up to the ordinance you just approved, which basically opens up the ability to have fines related to that. We also just sort of clarified the towing after multiple parking violations, to indicate that sort of on a rolling calendar basis. I guess the chief and I did talk, and that is gonna be really hard to do. And so, we would either suggest that you make a friendly amendment that it will be on a calendar year running July 1st to June 30th. Or just understand that that is how we're going to interpret it, because it's just too hard for our staff to sort of continue, like, we don't have a software system that will do this for us. So it's going to actually take a physical look back from staff on occasion, and so it's much easier if we just have a finite date. And so our thought was to sort of run it July to June would cover all of apartments. And all of the school year, which is another parking sort of season.
So we're still getting the whole snow season in one, my thought is if you did a calendar year,
We would
you would
split
be
it,
breaking
which
up
is,
to
yes.
like one winter and two.
So
That-
we would
that
run
not be
it
practical.
to July 1st.
That makes more sense.
Still in July.
I'll make that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, we don't have a motion on the floor,
No.
so.
I thought we did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when whoever makes the motion. So,
Right, so I'll move to approve ordinance 1796-2024. Can I amend it right now, or do I wait?
So you
We
can
need
just
a
make it as
second.
part of your motion.
Okay, and part of that motion would be to change the 10.01.51D4 to say that a vehicle receive more than 9 parking tickets any given year between July 1st and June 30th. That vehicle will be towed to congressional precinct time.
Second.
okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. It's been seconded by Larry Jurassic. Is there any further discussion? Not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Now we are on Plan Commission. Item A is to appeal the special exception application to deviate from section 7.07.13B2 of the Code of Ordinances to allow murals on the primary facade of the structure located at 820 Second Avenue South. This is tax parcel ID number 18951-5. The applicant is Holman Lindsay Paints. Someone. Rick, did you want to make a comment on this?
So as for number 2.
Yeah, so I did put together a memo for you tonight, and so, you know, generally staff will always attempt to interpret the code in the most favorable way. Because we do appreciate business, and we want to promote growth, and so Katie's not here tonight, but when she reviewed this initially and made a recommendation to Plan Commission, she did so in a way that was as favorable as possible. Allow a mural all on the front of the building, to allow them one sign, because that was what was still open to them under the city sign code. And to even allow them to keep the painted murals that they had in place with the commercial speech removed, which was basically as favorable of an outcome as our code allowed. And so what I'm here to ask you tonight is to uphold the Plan Commission's decision, which found for Katie's recommendation, which is the most favorable allowance that our code allows. When we adopted the mural ordinance, and especially that special exception, it was never anticipated that it would be used to allow something that's regulated under a different code. And so we really have entire sections of our code that are in conflict. And so if you were to allow the appeal, it would be basically contradicting something that's not allowed under the city's sign code, which creates a lot of legal problems. And so we are going to review the mural code as part of the art policy, as well as just as a result of this entire process. And I think you can expect changes forthcoming to that. But at least tonight, I would ask you to uphold the planning commission's decision.
Thank you for that. That said, what is the desire of the commission?
I have a question for the attorney. Could you specify like, what was allowable and what specifically needs to be removed in this case?
I would have to pull up the planning commission. I don't have that memorized.
I know that there was like,
And
they have things that were clearly commercial, like, great paint. I understand that's commercial and that.
yeah,
there's a
Paul and
problem with that.
Lindsay on the back of the shirts, and he is actually able to choose one of these and declare it a sign. And so part of it is also up to Paul and Lindsay, what they want to choose to do as far as which one they want to designate a sign and which one they want to follow the recommendations to remove. So one of those we'll be able to keep as a sign. But there were, I think, changes related to the We Deliver, the Creative People, I think removing like the Sun Prairie from the state of Wisconsin. But generally the state of Wisconsin would be allowed to stay.
My big dilemma, like the others I understand are commercial in nature and that's falls within the regulation. The state of Wisconsin, I thought that was really kind of weak and I have a concern with that. I mean, I don't see the commercial nature of having the state on there, even if it did have a tie between two cities. My personal preference is it said Alaska rather than La Crosse, but I'm not, I'm not here to be an art critic. But I would be okay with everything with the exception that I don't think that having the state of Wisconsin is something that should be. I just don't consider that commercial. And if every other business wanted to paint the state of Wisconsin on the front of their business, I don't think that gives them a commercial edge. I think it'd be weird if they did that, but I'd be fine with that. So I just think that I want to be careful that we don't do government overreach coming down on taking too strict of an interpretation on businesses that drive our local economy. So I don't know if there's any other appetite for that, but I'd be fine with everything else being very commercial, but I wonder if there's any other interest in the Wisconsin aspect and keeping that as part of the mural.
You can keep the state of Wisconsin. That's not being asked to be removed.
Right, but even if there's a line between two cities, I think that's a really weak commercial interpretation. So I might be by myself on this. I would if Mr. Fletcher had like if the business operator were okay with whitewashing the whole thing over, taking everything, then I would withdraw my objection, but that would be my one sticking point.
Okay, I think we should get a motion on the floor before we continue the discussion. For reference point, the recommendation of staff is to deny the appeal of the special exception and to uphold the plan commission decision. That's staff.
I'll move to approve the recommendation from the planning commission.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Stephen Knott. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Motion's been seconded by Mike Milky. Okay, discussion.
So the state of Wisconsin, the part that needs to come off, if I'm correct, is mainly just the two words that say across Middleton and road, right? Sunbury.
The road in Sun Prairie was like a plan commission thing,
Just that comes off.
Yeah.
So they can leave the state of Wisconsin, they can
They
leave
can
the
leave
headline,
that, yep.
banner.
and they can leave La Crosse, which we also set up.
Okay.
Any other questions for discussion? Okay, discussing it.
I would like if Mr. Fletcher is available, I could yield my time to see what his thoughts are on that specific thing.
The trouble with that is, I don't think we don't have an allowance, as far as I know, to make rulings on individual topics from the plan commission. Unless I'm incorrect on that, I'll defer to the city attorney if he's in.
My understanding, exactly, it's ruling on whether or not the appeal should be granted. That's my understanding of it. Then it will go back to planning commission if you want to do something different. Planning commission will go ahead and use that level. Again, that would be my.
Yeah, so for example, the motion on the floor is to deny the appeal. If the appeal were to pass, if the appeal is supported, then I think the action at plan commission is nullified and we'll have to start over.
We'll go back to
And we'll start the circle again. That's my understanding. Those are the choices.
As far as like what we've already done to good faith, we have allowed them to file for the special permit after it was done. Let them keep what's on there, so we have acted in good faith in numerous regards.
correct. We don't even, to my knowledge, have a mural permit received for the ones that are on there. So we've just sort of left it be.
What's a new thing?
But I just wanted to know, like, so I mean, we are making exceptions already against what is out there.
Yes,
as
even
far as-
having the entire front facade. is an exception.
Which could be applied for under special circumstances, but it was not done, which he has
Yeah.
done this now,
Yeah.
but we did allow them.
Yeah.
So concessions were,
Any other discussion, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So, does Mr. Fletcher still need to apply for it? I thought that was part of what was happening last. That still has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then say a certain timeline that he has to apply for it.
I mean, really, the sooner the better, like, really needed to have a mural permit already. And
Okay,
so
that's what I thought.
that needs to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I understand that the mural permit was, maybe it was paid for, but then turned into a permit. Or was there nothing?
I don't think so,
wasn't the special exemption paid $3?
Yes, that was.
Okay, that's
but
really,
the actual mural permit is still.
But I mean, I don't think anyone's making that's into a problem, or assuming it will be resolved once the city figures out. Okay, any other discussion?
You just restate the motion.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to deny the appeal of the special exception application, which would equal upholding the plan commission decision. That is what I believe the motion is.
Yeah, my motion was to approve the recommendation from the planning commission, which is also the same.
Okay, okay. Okay, let's just do the voting by roll call, just in case, and then that'll be simpler for me.
Okay, Alder Jurassic,
yeah,
Alder Knopf,
Aye.
Alder Wolf,
Aye.
Alder Miller, Alder McAllister.
Aye.
Alder Stevens.
I'm gonna be a nay.
Okay, so the motion passes 5-1. Thank you for that. Item 11, city administrator report, Mr. Neemeyer.
Thank you. Relatively short, because we have a couple of items and for words that we're gonna talk about as well too, but I think as you all know by now, there have been a very large number of RFPs that we've been going on this year. So just giving an update as to where they're, status of a couple of them. Currently, we are in the process of reviewing and scheduling interviews for the ERP system vendors as well as the banking services, so. Those are currently in process now. It's updating on budget process, so there's some budgets night right now. So departments have turned in their initial budgets and they're currently under review, and there'll be some discussions and meetings that'll be happening over the next couple of weeks as well too. So just like the status on that. I think you've all heard that we had our new website launch, basically what we call a soft launch, that was yesterday. And so things are going well. There are a few glitches based on the conversion, so we just ask for everybody's patience. We work through those glitches and get things up and running the way that they need to be happening over the next couple of weeks. I just want to touch base on our second annual staff success day. I told you before that that date has been set for November 11th. It's on Monday. So that will be the day we have it at the Omni Center. We've set a couple of speakers so far. And there's staff are trying to figure out what the rest of the day is going to look like in regards to events and activities. Council is all invited to this event, whether you're there for part of the day or all of the day. You're certainly welcome to attend as well. Generally, it runs from 8 to 4. More information on that. And then the events for the next one. That update. The next one, okay. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the unsheltered population. So about a month ago, we were having one of our huddle meetings, and during this, departments were getting updates in regards to, sorry, this fan is really cold today after an hour and a half. And so we were having discussions, and departments were updating in regards to incidences that have taken place across the city. Anybody who's watching the news knows that there are various topics and conversations that are going on with amongst our neighbors as well too in regards to how that looks. So after that huddle about a month ago, thought it was prudent to get together, group together, and start talking about, since we seem to be having what I view as increase, but of course I call it an increase because I don't see it on a daily basis. Things that have just been going on for a while. And I thought it was prudent to start having a conversation as to what's going on. Where are these things happening? What, if anything, might the city want to do regarding this? So we've had 2 meetings so far, one in July and one in August. A group that's gotten together, I guess volunteered to be part of this group. So we started having conversations. I also met with this county administrator, Jim, from the county as well too, just to kind of get an update as to what is it that, like, we all know Pathways Home plan is in place and what they're doing. So I met with her to get an update as to what's the status of that. So after all of that, I wanted to bring it to council to kind of have a conversation as to where we're at. So I'm going to give you some examples of some of the things that are happening around the city, and then just kind of conversation to whatever extent you feel comfortable tonight, just regarding input regarding what we're doing right now. So if you drive around the city, you probably have noticed that there's been quite a bit amount of panhandling going on at different locations. Some of the locations are, near McDonald's, on Highway 16. Quick Trip near the Outback Steakhouse, kind of back, set back there a little ways, excuse me. The corner near the Texas Roadhouse, I don't know where the bank is, the corner there, that's another area where we've been having back there for individuals. Those are just a couple of examples around the city where that's been occurring. I believe that one of the off ramps on Main Street from Highway 53, that's another area where it's well too. So that's relatively prevalent. Down at the Great River Landing, the showers and the bathrooms that are down there. We have one individual in particular who for some time now has been utilizing the shower rooms. They open up at a certain time in the morning. We'll be down there right when they open. We'll go in there, spread out their belongings, spend the day there. They close at a certain time, then they will either leave or sometimes they like the lock and stay longer. So that's the bathrooms and the showers. Dan and the staff have recognized that they're taking steps to try and alleviate that problem and doing different things. So we're working on that one. But that's just one example. I was down there a few weeks ago on a Friday and a Sunday, same person, next to each other. So there are other issues going on down at the Great River Landing as well too. Roe Park, once some things were done at the Great River Landing, there was one individual who was, I don't know if he's still going over there, but we'll go to the restrooms at Roe Park. There's a restroom facility there as well too. Again, they lock, there's ways to manipulate that as well. And then law enforcement and fire staff have both, been dealing with different situations when it comes to either unsheltered, panhandling. I don't have all the examples there, but they can be about some kind of perspective too. So based on the fact that it seems like, again, from my perspective, that there is an increase in this type of situations around the city, we just started having discussions. So we've had some discussions. We don't have any grand plan moving forward. Quite frankly, that's something the council should give some input on as to what, if anything, they want to see in regards to what the city should be. We currently have an ordinance in place that does prohibit camping in all parks. that's what this is all about. I'm not recommending anything regarding that, but I guess that's questions. So I'm gonna leave it at that for the moment. If any of the staff want to give additional input in regards to the thing that you've seen or we talked about, certainly feel free.
Counselors, Larry Jurassic.
You just mentioned that, there's no camping on parks, is that city property or just
No,
park?
that is just city parks, and so it would only cover those properties that are designated as a park. So if, for instance, somebody wanted to park at City Hall is not considered a park. If somebody wanted to camp, Omni Center is a little tricky because it's part of Russell Park, same with the Aquatic Center. But we're seeing an increase in storm ponds. And especially because a lot of those tend to have slopes, and so that can be concealing for people, and so they like that. So we are seeing sort of an uptick with the individuals spending time near our stormwater pond. So that would be another example that would not be covered under the ban on camping.
So do we have to increase the ban to include?
That is an option that the council could direct staff to do, would be to draft an ordinance to ban camping on all city property.
Aldernaut.
That was where I was gonna go, is that I think we need to increase it from parks to public property, which then would also be talking sidewalks and things of that nature too. And I believe the grants pass decision by the Supreme Court about a month or 6 weeks ago, pretty much upholds that we can do that. So-
Yeah, so cities were in kind of a holding pattern, waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on this case, as to whether or not camping could be outright banned, and it was found that that is allowable. So that was a win for cities.
Okay, staff, did you want to make any comments before we'll go back to the council?
But I just think it's definitely an issue. I mean, we have staff, our frontline staff are dealing with this almost on a daily basis. I know the PD is dealing with it a lot more than ours, but our staff in multiple different areas are running into situations that they're not trained in or, prepared to deal with. And a lot of my staff are seasonal staff. And so that, we are working with and trying to come up with solutions for it.
So are you including in their like onboarding instructions for how to deal with things so that they can ensure their personal safety?
We are trying, yes, but every situation is different, and I think the safety of the general public. City Administrator, you might have made a comment about the situation of the overdose, and we were able to see some of it on camera. We had innocent bystanders going in to try to help, to do CPR and things like that, you're putting, people in danger that way also, so. It's just, it is, something that we have to be aware of, we have to discuss. I appreciate Rick putting a group of individuals together because, between police, fire, public works and park and rec, we are definitely seeing it and, taking this.
Thank you for that. Alder Stevens?
Sure, thank you. A ways back, I had brought up with staff, I think my particular dilemma was the panhandling right coming off of highways, and I thought that was a safety issue. I mean, if somebody gets hit out there in a place where people are not supposed to be walking, like who's liable for that? Some of the dilemmas that were discussed is that if we regulate that could potentially tie up a lot of police resources. And, these are people that where are you gonna do? You ticket them? Are they gonna pay the fine? Probably not, so then you throw people in jail for walking out in public. That's not, we run into some constitutional issues. So, I mean, it's a much bigger problem. And I'm not sure how different it is if somebody were to go camping in one of our public parks. What would be this? I mean, we tell them they gotta leave, but then what? What if they just come back an hour later? Do we fine them? Do we incarcerate them? This really is a much more complicated issue. And if we do start making new regulation, I think we should look at regulating the having no pedestrians out in areas right off of the exit ramps of the interstate and other highways. But it's a big issue, and it's not gonna be easily resolved here tonight.
Okay, let's go back to Rick Wheeler.
And I agree with you, this is a much bigger issue, which I think is why some of our neighbors struggle to, what is the best course of action with it? And I think part of this conversation is, we are not immune from it, and so as a community, what do we want to start doing? You know, I've heard something about employee safety already too, you know, so that's one aspect of it. I think the group that is meeting is looking for some direction, because really this is a policy decision from the council as to how do you want to start handling, you know, what should we start doing internally? And so when you give some guidance tonight, we'll go back and we'll meet again, and then we'll start talking about how can we accomplish the things that you're telling us here. So.
Thank you. And I think Amanda had a comment.
I just wanted to add that if the direction is to go back and expand our ordinance to include all of public property, I think that we also need a corresponding ordinance on how to address abandoned property. And so when you have individuals who have large personal property that they're traveling with, it is not uncommon sometimes for that personal property to be disposed of on city property. And so going back to this can get very complex as far as, you know, the legal ramifications of it all. It's not as easy as just going in and taking somebody's personal property and throwing it away. We really should have that in an ordinance form, walking through what the process for that is.
Okay, Alderwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I know, City Administrator Niemeyer has reached out to me in the last few weeks, and we talked briefly about at what point does the council get involved in which format we should be talking about this. And I had recommended to him, and we both settled on this, that we really should be bringing this to council tonight, because my remark to you was, we shouldn't have our heads stuck in the sand, because we really need to address this. And if we're gonna be leaders, we need to go ahead and lead and not pretend it doesn't exist. And we really need to be on the forefront of this. And so I appreciate you going ahead and putting this on, because this is not an easy thing to talk about, but we have to be realists. And I'm concerned about the safety of our staff. And I know a year or two ago, I know I reached out to Chief Ashbeck, because I had a constituent in my second district who had a concern about the panhandling, because it had been increasing. And he was kind enough to humor me, and we brought it to, and I talked with City Attorney Jackson also about, and we talked about it at a council level maybe a year or two ago. And I know it was not a comfortable thing to talk about, but at the time I thought, we also had some new people on council, and I think it's always a good thing to revisit from time to time, like, where are we at now? And I thought Chief Ashbeck was very open in talking about why, you know, why we don't do the catch and release, you know, because it wasn't fruitful. You just spend a lot of energy and time, and you have boots on the ground, but not necessarily for those purposes. But I think the time's come that, you know, we're gonna have to do something. And I certainly am very open ears to hear, what can we do? I've been personally kind of following for quite some time La Crosse County, the city of La Crosse. I kind of get the impression that, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the impression that what the city of La Crosse just did seems like it's kind of butting up against what the county's trying to do. So I guess I don't know if we need to be aware of that. I would look to administration for guidance, because I wouldn't want to be going against maybe what the county is trying to accomplish. But again, I'm all ears, but I'm glad that we're just talking about this tonight. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? Aldernaut?
Yeah, so first off, on the safety of the staff, I assume that we have Narcan available to anyone who would be involved in this situation?
From a staff standpoint?
Oh, yeah.
No,
The police department, we carry Narcan, yeah.
Is there any reason why the parks cannot?
One thing in caution with Narcan is if you administer high doses, it could be potential for violence. If that person comes out of their state too fast.
Well, yeah, that would be, if you've got somebody who's overdosing, I would think that would be an EMS situation or a police situation. I'm talking about with fentanyl, we all know that close counts. If you come within close proximity to a certain amount of it, our own staff could suddenly have an issue. That's where I'm going with the Narcan, having them available for them to be able to self-treat or treat their buddy. If it's an overdosing situation, I would leave that to the professionals. But I mean, I would think that the training is not very difficult. I mean, it's just an inhaler, basically.
Yeah, it's a mist that.
Yeah, mist that goes up, yeah.
Yes, yep.
So it's something to consider just for the safety on our own folks. And then, where my view on this, there's a conflict potentially between compassion / misplaced compassion and enabling. And, I personally have kind of a, I guess would probably be a hard line on this. Because my view is that we have to provide public safety to our citizens. And if we are starting to have an increase in this population, I mean, the statistics are, there's no lie, there will be an increase in drugs as well, to include potential for needles and everything else that are gonna be appearing in our parks where children play and everything, and that's where my compassion is, I'm sorry. I think that the public safety and the staff safety has to take priority over this. And if it doesn't, my goodness, if you see communities that have crossed the line into enabling and they're all over the United States and they're making national news all the time, it becomes a nightmare very, very quickly. So I know where I view, my recommendation for anything that goes down the path is public safety of our own citizens must come first.
Thank you for that, Alderman. Anybody else, questions or
I have a
comments?
question. So right now, like chief, if we have like a call comes in, we have somebody in a park, they're not supposed to be there, we remove them, they come back the next day. So we just keep like, are we moving them somewhere? Like, what are we actually doing at this current state?
Well, we haven't really had people camping per se, so yeah, we would just ask them to move along.
And then if they kept doing it, like, I mean, there's gonna be consequence, like, is there further step, like, I'm just curious, like, do we have like a plan or something like that, or?
Well, we would take it case by case, but essentially, I mean, we could write them a municipal citation for camping in the park if that's what they're doing, but. I mean, if they're just hanging out, not camping, there's really nothing illegal about that, unless they're after hours, then we could write them a ticket for being in a park after hours. But
Or
typically.
they're harassing other park citizens.
And there
Right.
have, and not to cut in, but there have been cases where there were homeless people who the officers have helped connect with resources to get them a place to stay or get them what they need. I don't want to speak for you, chief.
Yeah, certainly, we always try to get them resources, I mean, probably 99% of the time, they refuse any type of services, but.
But if they were to keep coming back after they've been written and told to leave, at some point that becomes trespassing, I would think, and they could be arrested on a misdemeanor, right?
If they're creating a disturbance with their trespassing, then we can go criminal, but if they're not. Then would probably just be a trespassing citation. So.
I guess that's where I'm coming from, it just seems like we can just keep slapping people on the wrist, but it's like, how do you actually make something happen? So that's where my conversation comes from.
That's the challenge from
Yeah.
our standpoint,
Yeah.
because, I mean, we could write a ticket every day, and if they don't pay it. Are we, like Alder Stevens brought up, I mean, are we gonna lock these people up? Probably not, right?
Right.
So that's where this is such a complex problem to try to solve.
Yeah.
Again, I'll be the bad guy, I don't see the issue with that, if they're refusing to go to proper shelters. They're refusing to accept the help that is in the area, they're refusing to abide by our own ordinances. I have no reason, I don't understand why eventually it can't come to that, and look, you know, we've given you every possible offer of help and guidance here. And you're just flat out refusing and creating a safety issue. I don't understand why we can't arrest them and charge them, I mean, it would be a misdemeanor in most cases, but why not?
We do have to be careful too, that, you know, even if they are an unsheltered individual, they can be on public property.
Sure.
At any given time.
I'm talking camping
Sure.
specifically, I mean, doing drugs, that would be a felony.
Sure.
But I'm talking the camping on public property, on a sidewalk, in a park, what have you.
Sure.
I mean, eventually there has to come a time where it's like, you know, we've given you every opportunity and you're just not taking it. So you've now crossed the line.
And like you said too, you know, if it's after hours, the park is closed, you know, that would be a scenario where something.
I got no problem with warnings and things like that, but if there's one or more individuals who just, I don't care. and they're not, and give me all the citations you want, I'm coming back. Well, it's gotta be trespassing. I just don't understand why we can't do that.
Alder Wolf.
I think Your Honor, so two things, so Dan Weck, Director of Parks and Recreation, you've been seeing needles for a long time in the Parks Avenue.
Yeah, we did have one of our staff at the Great River Lane get stuck, by cleaning up the flower beds. He went through all the procedures, but, was negative on everything, but.
And, yeah, well, I'm with Alder not on this is that, and I think that if I remember quoting our ordinances, I'm assuming it's still in there somewhere. What is the role of the common council? And I remember quoting it back about the smoke ordinance 20 years ago. And it was about, one of our jobs was to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. And I've never forgotten that, and I keep in that blinders on that, and I add our staff. That's paramount to me. It's paramount. That's at the top of my order. So, I don't know what the answers are. I think that's why, we as a nation, we struggle with this. But I think we need to hopefully come to some agreement that, what are our priorities? Who are we? Who do we want to be? We see we're vibrant with all these things, but, I think we're also a compassionate community, but at the end of the day, I know who we answer to, and at least I think I know who we should be answering to. And that is to, our citizens, and if we can't protect our staff, our most valuable asset that we have, how are we doing here? So, I look forward to future conversations, but I think we're gonna have to really buckle down and really have some serious discussions and, be prepared for some flack that we may receive. But look at the long game, what are we here for? So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alder Jurassic.
Thank you, Mayor. Reputation is everything, and I think that's what we're really concerned about, is that the reputation of the city be made into a area to where that people coming into this area know that, hey, if you cross these lines, something's gonna happen to you. A lot of cities right now, you go to them and the reputation is nothing happens, just go on in and do whatever you want. That's the balance we gotta try to keep here. And it's gonna be a tough job, that's all I can say. But I fully support both Steve and Diane's comments, and just wanted to bring that up.
Alder, go ahead.
And I'll just also say, staff are trying to figure out ways to kind of start collecting data as to where these events occur, where people are. We have to figure out what's the best mechanism of that, but at some point, that data is going to be helpful to that information. So we'll take the things that you have said here tonight back, and we'll have some conversations about it. And then back with one.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and continue on with item C.
Thank you. The other item is, had a conversation recently with Alder Wolf in regards to the council's training budget. I believe it's at $500, if I remember correctly. And traditionally, I don't know if a lot of that has been used over the past year, so I don't know the exact numbers, but I don't know a lot of it used. I know Mike had the opportunity to utilize it for a webinar as well too. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities Conference, they typically hold their main one is in the fall. One last year, I was probably the conference I went to when I started here, very good conference. There was a question as to whether or not alders want to attend the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Fall Conference. Again, it's a very good conference. It is typically a 3-day conference, 2.5 days. And this year is in Madison. It's October 23rd to the 25th. It's a great opportunity to not only meet others across the state, of course, but also for networking purposes, but also to learn about some of the topics that are going on in the city that we help us too. So the discussion was had, for 2024, the budget's already been set. 2025, there's going to be some factoring, there are some additional training dollars. But 2024, and if there is any interest in going to this conference that is going to be held in October, and the cost per person, again, approximately $800. It's $300 for the conference, and then it's $136 a night for hotel. And then factored in 3-night stay, so. We'll let Diane kind of jump in here as well too, because I know she had some thoughts on it as well. But it's being brought up because if there is interest in more people going, then we just have to do something before it's time to sign up for it, so. Diane,
Thank you. So I know, it's kind of like when it kind of really got right when our finance director, Steger went ahead and, every year the council president's given the budget for the following year to set. And I think at one year might have been a couple $100, then $500 for 6 people, and you want to keep hearing about what across counties do, what across council members are doing. $500 isn't a whole lot, and our poor mayor, through the years, whenever we want to do something or an extra, maybe over something, she's been very kind enough to go ahead and kind of play the shell game and throw a little money towards ours, to try to make up for it. And $500 isn't a whole lot for 6 people. In fact, it is. Probably isn't enough for one person. So I appreciate Alder Milsky going ahead and asking about, the $75 to take that, some training with the league when it comes to budgeting. I'll be honest, it's, all my time on council, it seems like council's been kind of like an afterthought that we've never been given the opportunity. It's never been, I think the city's just always run so lean. It's just never been brought up. And I thought, if we want to go ahead and attract new people to run for council and just improve ourselves and be more, just personal development for ourselves as being a council member, we should be, if we're providing that for our staff, why are we not doing it for our elected officials? So that's where I'm coming from. I fully intend to go ahead and attend in the fall. And certainly welcome anyone else who would like to go ahead and attend it, because I don't think we would have a problem finding the dollars to support it. I know a few of us went to when the annual conference was in La Crosse a couple years ago, and I went all 3 days. It was a really great conference, and there's still things that I learned there then that I incorporate every day in my being an elected official. So it's something that I would like to attend, and if there's any others, I would strongly recommend that y'all also go. And you don't have to go for all 3 days. You could go for a day, 2, 3 days, whatever you want. But I would just like seriously for this council to think about just basic additional training for those of us who sit here and do the work that we do.
And I will say the league is just one conference. I mean, there are other options out there as well too. I don't know if all of you get the updates from the league via email. They have a monthly series, like the Brown Bag Lunch, that are typically over the lunch hour. So those are other options, and those are typically free, or there's some kind of like round table or something like that too. So the league is just one option, considering this.
Yeah, I was just going to add, if that is the intent, I would just want to know who's going to approve them. So like when all of the travel reimbursements and the conference reimbursements come to finance department, usually it's approved by your direct supervisor. So I don't know if you would want those to come to the full committee, like we approve Mike to go to this, or how you want that to be brought forward.
I guess one question would be, I mean, council really doesn't have a boss, and the mayor doesn't have a boss, so if I may ask, so when the mayor goes, like, who approves hers?
Usually, I would have the administrator sign off.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't mean to overstep, but couldn't it just be the same scenario? Because I looked at us in the elected category. So that's my suggestion.
It could, but my question was, would the other council members want to know, like that? We have $3,000 and 3 of us are gonna go to this conference, or how that's gonna work, was my only thought.
Why don't we just establish a budget and then it's taken care of?
Well, the point is, there isn't any money allocated for this year.
I went ahead and put in, was it 3,000 for next year?
Yeah.
Okay, Alder not?
Well, I think it's both the dollars, which will have to come to the full, obviously, council if we're approving any money. But it's also, I think, frequency, because if it's just dollars, one person could in theory use it all up. All right, so I'm thinking maybe one training a year, not to exceed X amount, whatever we find is reasonable. And then on a case by case exception, of course, we can always, as a full council, again, agree that, okay, Steve can go to a second one, this is legitimate, whatever it might be. But I think if one a year for each of us, because we don't want to be breaking the bank here. And with a certain cap, as you know, well, there's a really nice one out in the Bahamas I'd like to go to, so capping it is so that we don't get crazy or leave the door open for somebody to abuse it. Not that any of us would, but personalities change, so.
Well, I think, but I think too, though, we're talking about, we serve in the state of Wisconsin, so I would think that we would stay within the state of Wisconsin, unless the league chooses to maybe put a Hawaii one year.
Well, I think my recommendation would be that we take this on this particular case of whether or not we think the League of Municipalities on October 23rd, 25th is worthwhile if people want to go. Make a decision on whether or not we want to allocate more money for that, but in the future, and we're coming up on budget time, maybe we need I hate to do it, but a policy. That defines the left and right limit again, and then, of course, an exception rule on how we go about doing that, so.
I don't expect anybody to make a decision tonight if they want to go to the league's conference this fall. If somebody wants to go, my suggestion would be is if you can let me know by not this Friday, but next Friday potentially, because then we can get something in front of F&P and then go to council to approve a budget. So then we would know how much we would need for this year. So that you can get signed up before it gets too late to show up these go that kind of thing. So that would be my suggestion.
We put me down.
Yeah.
Maybe one evening.
Sure.
Okay, so Rick, do you have all the information you need for your section?
I do, and I think what I'll do is I'll just do a follow-up email to all of council with the next Friday if someone wants to go. Let me know.
Okay. Item 12, closed session. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 1985E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting of other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically the Onalaska School District Stadium expansion into Grove Park. And also to consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 1985G of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically the Tyco BASF PFAS settlements. If any action is required in open session, as a result of the closed session, the council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and or continue with the printed agenda.
Move, we go into closed session.
Motion by Dan Stevens, second by Larry Jurassic to go into closed session. The voting will be by roll call.
Alder Milky,
Aye.
Alder McAllister,
Aye.
Alder Jurassic,
Aye.
Alder Wolf,
Aye.
Alder Stevens,
Aye.
Alder Nut.
Aye.
Okay, the voting was unanimous. We are in closed session. The time is 8:49. We'll allow a few minutes to restart the voting.
Thanks.